Anything else we need to address, Commonwealth?
I just think on the questionnaire, I was looking over the questions. I don't have any objections. I only request an addition. On number 2, it asks about a family member or close friend being diagnosed with postpartum depression, or generalized anxiety disorder. It also asks to include bipolar disorder, as most of the experts in this case have diagnosed the defendant with bipolar disorder. So I think it'd be important to have that information.
All right. Anything else in regards to medication?
And also, Your Honor, there's no question on here regarding medications, whether people have any experience with psychiatric medications and whether that would affect their ability to be fair and impartial, either experience or views about. Is that the case?
Mr. Reddington?
First of all, if I could just harken back to the orders that you've given on the motions to eliminate, and I don't mean to seem paranoid, but you, I'm sure, understand the appellate courts in Massachusetts have repeatedly stated that on a motion to eliminate, if the defense counsel does not object, you're waiving it. So I just want to make sure, number one, for the appeals court, if necessary, or the SJC, I object. And is it my understanding that any further objections, I don't have to keep objecting because I respect your ruling that I don't have to?
Come on. I have no problems with that. I think especially it's clear that the issues were raised on the motion to eliminate. I've ruled on them. And I think it doesn't need to be a recurring objection on those.
I would agree, for the record, Your Honor, that if whichever party was affected by the denial, the objection is there.
Okay. All right.
Addressing the questionnaire, Your Honor, if I may, it's an interesting issue that we're dealing with. The questions that have been requested, have you, a family member or close friend, ever been diagnosed with postpartum depression, or generalized anxiety disorder? The next question is, skipping over the NGA, number 4, have you, a family member or close friend, ever been diagnosed and or treated for mental illness or condition? And then going down to number 6, have you, a family member or close friend, had an experience with a psychiatrist, psychologist, or mental health facility that would make it difficult for you to be fair and impartial in this case? And finally, number 9, do you believe that a person's mental illness should not be considered when determining their guilt or innocence? So, going backwards, number 9, this is very similar to when we ask jurors or we tell jurors, do you understand that a defendant does not have to testify in this trial? Do you understand a defendant does not have the burden of presenting evidence on his or her own behalf? And many times at sidebar, jurors will say, well, I think they should tell their side of the story. And then the judges will say, well, if you are instructed by me that that is not to be considered, can you then abide by my instruction and be fair and impartial? And they always invariably say, well, yeah, I could, I guess. And then they will be accepted. I'm concerned about raising all of these so personal issues. There is a stigma in this country of mental disease or illness. There is, whether we acknowledge it or not, and it's embarrassing to many people. And I'm just concerned that jurors would, let's say they answer yes to question 2, that you or a family member has been diagnosed with PPD or depression or generalized anxiety disorder, and they say yes, then that's going to open up the inquiry into when, where, how, who, what medication, and will then invariably lead to kind of an inverse challenge, by repeated challenges by the government, I think, to pretty much any citizen who comes in here. It's almost like a reverse Batson challenge. Any citizen that comes in here and has had mental treatment or has had what they perceive to be a mental disease, and they have been on medication, they're going to say hypothetically, yes, I have. And I saw Dr. So-and-so, and I think that the shrinks are useless, and I think they're terrible, and I think they're horrible, and they ruin my life. They're gone. They're going to challenge that person. If a person says, yes, I had medical treatment by a psychiatrist and I was on medication, that begs the question, how did that work out for you? Was there any issue with the medication? Anyone that has any issue whatsoever with mental disease, defect, or medications is going to be tossed because of alleged cause. They're going to say it's for cause because they have a preconceived notion. And that's going to wipe out a significant number of citizens that are being brought here to this court to sit on a jury, recognizing the fact that the issue of mental disease, defect, treatment, lack of criminal responsibility is central to this case. I certainly have no problem, and I have confidence, as we always say, that the court will give a very forceful instruction to the jurors that regardless of any preconceived notions, that they come into this court with a clean slate and they have to listen to the testimony and listen to the evidence. We do it all the time, usually to the detriment of the defense, but we do it and we say, okay, can you understand what I'm telling you, that you don't have to listen to this, or that you don't have to feel the defendant has to present their evidence, and we accept them as jurors. So I don't think it's fair to exclude a potentially significant number of people that would be good citizens, good jurors, just because they have had mental disease or treatment, psychiatrist, psychologist, MDMA, or whatever they call it, or any of those treatments, or medical issues with medications. I just think that we're flirting with disaster on that type of question.
So what would you want me to just ask number 3?
Number 3, looking at number 3, I think is fine. The defense in this case is that Ms. Clancy is not guilty due to not being criminal or lack of criminal responsibility at the time she killed her 3 children. This is commonly referred to as an insanity defense. Is there anything about this so-called insanity defense that would offend you or cause you to not be able to fairly decide this case? And then they come up on the individual voir dire and they say to you, in our presence, yes, I don't like psychiatrists, or I don't like psychiatric medications, or my brother did something or other. Yeah, I think question 3 captures it. Instead of going through all of those questions, number 2, 4, 6, 9, I think number 3, I have no problem with.
Commonwealth?
Your Honor, I think the questions should remain as they are. Defense counsel's only objection to them seems to be his belief in knowing how we're going to make decisions and how we're going to address issues or answers that come up at sidebar. And he is wrong about our approach, and he is wrong about the way we handle things. I can speak for myself, and I can say that if a person comes up and says that they have had mental health treatment, mental health medication, I have no issue with that, as long as they can be fair and impartial to both sides. And I mean both sides, not just me, to the defense as well. Now, his example that he gave, that someone says, I had an awful experience with a doctor, it ruined my life, and I can't be fair and impartial. I should think that neither side would want to take that person, because we want a fair and impartial trial for both sides. So I think the questions are fair. I think the questions get to the heart of the issues that will be in this case. And I think a lot of them get to the issues that case law in this area addresses we should ask about. So I'd ask that you leave your questions as they are.
All right, I'm going to take a look at it. I don't think I'm going to go just with 3, but I may combine. There are a couple of kind of just going over the same kind of area. So I think if I can condense those, that's probably what I'll do. And I'll give parties the chance to be heard again in regards to that. So it'll probably be 3 and then maybe one other one addressing that kind of issue.